The Tale of the Two Kings and the Wazir's Daughters, by Traditional Arabian Tale. Brought to you by Tellers Network, stories from around the world. In times long past, there lived two brothers who were kings in neighboring lands. The elder ruled a great city in distant China, while the younger held dominion over Samarkand in Persia. Both were men of power and prosperity, and for many years each governed his realm with wisdom and strength. The elder king, wishing to see his brother whom he had not visited in many years, sent his vizier to Samarkand with an invitation. When the message arrived, the younger king prepared at once for the journey, making ready his tents, pavilions, and retinue. But on the night before his departure, seeking to bid farewell to his wife, he found her sleeping with a slave in his own chamber. Overcome with rage and betrayal, he slew them both where they lay and departed for his brother's kingdom with a heart turned dark. When he arrived at his brother's court, the elder king received him with great joy and housed him in a splendid pavilion overlooking the palace gardens. Yet the younger king could neither eat nor drink, consumed by bitterness over his wife's treachery. His face grew pale and his body weak. The elder king, troubled by his brother's condition, believed he suffered from homesickness.
"Come, let us ride out hunting to lift your spirits."
But the younger king refused, preferring to remain alone in the pavilion. So the elder king departed for the hunt, and the younger brother sat gazing from his window into the garden below. There he witnessed a sight that both shocked and strangely relieved him. His brother's wife emerged into the garden accompanied by 20 slaves, 10 male and 10 female. Before his disbelieving eyes, the queen coupled with one of the male slaves, while the others did likewise with each other, all engaging in shameless acts beneath the trees. The younger king's despair lifted somewhat, for he realized that his own misfortune was not unique. When his brother returned from the hunt and saw him restored in color and appetite, he asked,
"What has cured you of your melancholy?"
The younger king told him everything, first of his own wife's betrayal, then of what he had witnessed in the garden. The elder king could scarcely believe such accusations against his queen, but his brother insisted he see for himself. On the next hunting expedition, the elder king pretended to depart but returned secretly, and witnessed with his own eyes the same shameful scene. Both kings were now consumed with anguish and fury.
"If this befalls us who are kings, what then of common men? There is no trust to be placed in women."
They resolved to abandon their kingdoms and wander the earth as pilgrims until they should find someone whose misfortune exceeded their own. Disguising themselves, they traveled far from their realms. One day, at the edge of the sea, they witnessed an extraordinary sight. A towering Ifrit rose from the depths, carrying upon his head a great chest secured with 7 locks. The demon sat upon the shore and opened the chest, revealing a beautiful woman trapped within. While the Ifrit slept with his head in her lap, the woman saw the two brothers hiding nearby and commanded them to approach.
"By Allah, do with me as you will, or I shall wake this demon and have him slay you both."
The brothers pleaded to be excused, but she would not be moved. They had no choice but to comply with her demands. Afterward, she commanded each to give her his ring, then showed them a purse containing 98 other rings.
"I have lain with 98 men since this Ifrit imprisoned me in his chest. Now I have 100. He thought to keep me from all men by locking me in this box and hiding me at the bottom of the sea, but a woman determined on her course cannot be prevented, no matter how powerful her keeper."
The two brothers looked at each other in amazement.
"Here is one whose misfortune exceeds ours. This Ifrit is mightier than we are, yet he could not prevent his woman from deceiving him."
They returned to their kingdoms, but the elder king's heart had turned to stone. He established a terrible custom. Each evening, his vizier would bring him a virgin bride. The king would spend the night with her, and at dawn he would have her executed, commanding the vizier himself to carry out the sentence. Day after day, month after month, this horror continued. The young women of the kingdom were consumed one by one, and the people lived in terror and grief. The vizier himself had 2 daughters. The elder, whose name was Sharzad, had studied extensively and was learned in books, histories, and the sayings of the wise. She possessed abundant knowledge and penetrating intelligence. When she heard of the king's cruel custom and the suffering it brought upon the people, her heart filled with compassion.
Father, I wish to be taken to the king as his bride.
The vizier was horrified.
Are you mad? You know well that he will have you killed in the morning. I cannot bear to lose you.
But Sharzad was resolute.
I have devised a plan that may end this evil custom and save the daughters of the people. Either I shall succeed, or I shall die as they have died.
The vizier argued with her at length, relating parables meant to dissuade her. But Sharzad answered each with greater wisdom. At last, seeing he could not change her mind, he went reluctantly to the king.
Your Majesty, I have a daughter who wishes to become your bride.
The king looked at him in astonishment.
Do you not know what I do with those who come to me? When dawn breaks, you yourself must put her to death. How can you offer your own daughter for such a fate?
She knows the custom, Your Majesty, yet she insists. She will not be dissuaded.
That evening, the vizier brought Sharzad to the palace. Before going in to the king, she instructed her younger sister Dunyazad.
After the king has done with me, I will send for you. When you come, say to me, Sister, tell us a story to pass the hours of the night. Then I shall begin a tale.
All transpired as Sharzad had planned. After the king had taken his pleasure, Sharzad sent for her sister. Dunyazad came and said,
Sister, if you are not weary, tell us one of your stories, for I would hear your words on this last night.
If the king permits.
Sharzad said, turning to the king. The king, curious despite himself, nodded his consent. So Sharzad began to tell a tale, a wondrous story full of marvels and wisdom, of strange lands and extraordinary happenings. The king listened, drawn into the narrative despite his hardened heart. But as dawn approached and the story reached its most compelling moment, Sharzad fell silent.
Why do you stop?
The hour is late, Your Majesty, and I would not presume to continue without your leave. Besides, what remains is even more extraordinary than what I have told.
The king found himself torn. He wished to hear the conclusion, yet his custom demanded her death. At last he said,
I will spare you for one more day, that I may hear the end of this story tomorrow night.
The next evening, Sharzad completed the first tale but immediately began another, even more captivating than the first. Again, as dawn approached, she stopped at a moment of suspense. Again, the king granted her one more day. So it continued night after night. Sharzad told tales of genies and magical transformations, of clever merchants and noble princes, of talking animals and hidden treasures. Each story flowed into the next, and each dawn the king found himself unable to order her execution, hungry to hear what would come next. 3 days passed, then a week, then a month. The people of the city began to hope. Perhaps the king's heart was softening. Perhaps the slaughter would end. As the nights stretched on, the king found himself listening not merely to hear the end of the tales, but because Sharzad's stories moved him. Through her words, he began to remember compassion, justice, and mercy, virtues he had abandoned in his rage and pain. He began to see that his revenge against womankind had become a greater evil than the betrayal that had wounded him. The people rejoiced to see that the king no longer called for executions. Gradually, those who had fled the city in fear began to return. The kingdom, which had been shrouded in grief, began to breathe again. And so, through the power of her wisdom and storytelling, Sharzad saved not only herself but all the daughters of the kingdom. The king renounced his terrible custom and ruled thereafter with justice and mercy, and Sharzad remained his queen, honored and beloved by all the people.